Lynz. What are you listening to?
Brian, you share yours and I'll share mine.
With millions of podcasts, how do you choose?
We are here to help you find that next bingeable podcast.
Or that piece of content you'll follow regularly.
You're listening to Feed Drops. All right, everybody. Welcome to Feed Drops. We are here. My name is Lynz, and I'm here with Brian, and we do this show every week. And we're happy to be here. This is our 10th episode of Feed Drops. And what does that bring up for you, Brian?
Last stat I read, 90% of the shows started don't make it past 13.
Ooh.
So 14 will be a good episode.
Yeah. So yeah, we're about a month away from that, right?
Yeah.
We're doing so like things are going at a clip. I think for those of you listeners out there, this is if you've been hearing some of the episodes, we're kind of finding our footing, but it really feels like we're starting to find a rhythm with it, not only in the format of the show, but also in the administrative part, making sure that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. It's nice to be able to kind of lock that in and go, all right, now down to the content.
And speaking of content, I want to compliment you on the TikTok content you've been throwing out there.
Oh, well, thank you, sir.
You're crushing it. If you do not follow us on TikTok, hit us up. We are Feed Drops on TikTok, as well as Instagram. Twitter, we are Pod Feed Drops. Hit us up on them social platforms.
Yeah, definitely do that. Engage with us there. And we're happy to chat with you and share podcasts on there as well. So it's an extension of what we're doing here.
That it is. Speaking of what we are doing here, Lynz, what do you have for us and the listeners today?
I am really excited about this pick because it checks a lot of boxes for me. One, it was a submitted show. I'm just thrilled that people submit their shows.
I am as well.
Makes me very happy. And this one is called Chasing Enlightenment. The artwork on this one is great. You got to definitely check it out. Really cool, iconic look. And the first episode is called The Vegetarians, which if you know me, that speaks to me. I am a vegetarian. But what I love most about this show, you know what? You're going to have to wait till we get to it. Brian, what did you bring?
Today, I also picked a submitted show. And the show is called Making Conversations Count. So that intrigued me right away. And to be completely honest, I listened to the entire episode and not till just now did I realize the host of the show is actually a telemarketing trainer. Therefore, all the people that are bugging you at dinner time, it's probably her fault. So I'm not going to hold that against her because she's interviewing somebody that created a platform within the podcasting space. And the episode is entitled, How Much Money Do Podcasts Make? Also intriguing in our line of work.
That definitely speaks to me.
It does. And she has a great guest with a cool platform. And, some topics are going to be played that I've had uncomfortable conversations with some of my hosts. Some people are uncomfortable asking for what this show helps out with. So I'm kind of intrigued. Cannot wait to share it. And we're going to do that right after this quick break. All right, Lynz, I can't wait. Tell me about this cult.
Okay. We're gonna start off in a second with a clip, but first I'll set it up. Again, the show we're talking about is called Chasing Enlightenment, and it follows a cult from Toronto. Yeah, that started, I believe, in the mid-'70s sometime. But we're just going to have to go to the clip now.
Here we go, clip one.
Though the neighborhood was still quite run down and under prohibition, rent was inexpensive, and Gus saw an opportunity to inject some life into the area. He didn't realize, though, that he was setting up his business smack in the middle of where the Students of Light had been operating, largely uninterrupted, for the past 2 decades. The way Gus tells it, they weren't happy with the disturbance.
And from the moment that we started our renovations, we were, being pestered by the neighbors. Whatever, we would have contractors there, and if they would throw a coffee cup on the sidewalk, we'd have a note on the door, or we'd have a call into the city. And it was constant, and it didn't stop after the renovations either. Then there was constant noise complaints. There was petitions against us being able to have a patio. And all these little complaints were from these people that we found out were we used to call them the veggies. They were just pestering. They were like little pests.
The veggies were little pests?
The veggies were little pests. So that kind of gives you a little bit of insight into how they behaved. But they lived in this one area of Toronto that they had set up a vegetarian restaurant, maybe the first of its kind in the Toronto area in the 70s. And they built some other businesses around it. They had a really charismatic leader, and this first episode doesn't really get too much into him too much, but they definitely allude to the fact that he started out as a humble guy who really connected with people and kind of became power hungry, which that's pretty exciting. Not from, I wouldn't want to experience it, but as a podcast listener, it gets me going.
Have you ever known somebody in a cult, knowingly known them?
And
we're not talking about the ones that knock on our doors and try to get us to
no.
church.
Yeah, I've met some people who have left, they've left cults or they've been in them before.
That's strange. I mean, not strange, interesting.
Mm-hmm. The church I grew up in was listed in a Catholic book of cults.
Really?
Yes. But it was anyone who thinks for themselves, it kind of walks its way into the Catholic list of cults.
I'd like to see that list because I'm sure every church that isn't Catholic is probably in that book.
I kind of want to go back and find it. I have not thought about that whole thing in a long time. So now, that's all pre-Google. Now I wonder what would happen if I searched it.
I'm sorry to get you off topic, but
we're in the cults, and so I'd be interested if you're listening to this and you have been a part of a cult, or you have a friend who is in a cult, or or you have any sort of firsthand cult knowledge. Will you message us, DM us, hit us up somewhere, and just tell us that story? Because I love that stuff, and it'd be real fun to get it from someone who's listening.
Future podcast project.
Oh man, don't give me. I have too many. Brian. Do not do it.
So tell me more about the veggies.
All right. So they were, they had a vegetarian lifestyle, and they had a vegetarian restaurant, and they got into food packaging because they needed food packaging that was veggie friendly or something. So they were entrepreneurial in some sense, but as you heard in that last one, they squeezed people out of the area. They used kind of, mafioso type techniques, in their own right to kind of mux people out. So for this next clip, the area that they had taken over was a dry area. There was no alcohol allowed. And so anytime a restaurant would try to come in and get a permit for alcohol and try to get it rezoned, they would show up in full force to try to keep the area dry and not allow any liquor. And so, there's something a little bit off about how they did everything, but in particular, this story here kind of sets up how they joyfully make life difficult for their neighbors.
During the second election, the last night before the campaign, I got a helium tank, and I printed, about 1,000 balloons, and it said vote. The balloons said vote yes to licensed premises. They were red balloons, and I blew them up the night before the election, and we drove around all night, put balloons all along Dundas Street and all along the side streets. And so people in the morning when they got up, they see these balloons floating, reminded them, oh, today's voting day, let's go vote.
That morning, Gus says a member of the Students of Light, who had been one of the loudest anti-wet voices, was among those who woke up and saw the balloons.
When she walked from her house, all the way to her work, she was sort of skipping along the way and sort of laughing kind of hysterically, those hysterical laughs, and popping the balloons on the way to her work. And then my uncle found her outside. He saw her pop and he says, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop doing that. You're not allowed to, that's campaign. You're not allowed to pop those balloons." "Oh, I'm just having fun," she said something to him like, I never, went so far as to charge her with, defacing campaign material. But that's what she did.
So, yeah, you can tell that this group is not entirely playing by anyone else's rules. And this is sort of a little instance of it, but I, definitely listened through this one and added it to my queue. I mean, I subscribed right away. As soon as I knew, like halfway in, I knew I was going to be listening to the rest of these shows. So, I'm a fan. I think if you find creepy groups of people interesting, you will be a fan too.
I'm going to have to turn my wife onto this show because we actually have a picture of her in the corner of the remains of the cabin that they captured Charles Manson in. Mm-hmm. And there's a famous picture of a California Highway Patrolman holding him at gunpoint, pulling him out of this cabinet. And she was in that same spot, crunched down. She loves that kind of stuff.
Nice. Well, I think it's her thing then.
Definitely.
Well, sweet. That's it for this one for Chasing Enlightenment. And I think after the break, I can't wait to hear the show that you brought, Brian.
Today we have for you Making Conversations Count. And this is hosted by Wendy Harris, who is a telemarketing trainer. And I have a lot of conversations, obviously, but in talking with a buddy, we always use this term and throw banter around that words matter. And they do. And the choice of words, and typically we're talking about how the news is reporting something, and the choice of words they choose to use. So this kind of like spoke to me. And then as I dove into it a little more, she is actually interviewing a gentleman who created a platform called Guestio, which is a podcast monetization platform. And I'm going to leave it at that for now. And we're going to play this first clip.
They're probably going to take your time more seriously. They're probably going to show up with a little bit more energy. They're probably more motivated to share the opportunity, because when you pay attention, and people sometimes take podcasting opportunities for granted. They're looked at more like a PR campaign, like somebody's writing an article, and it's just not the same thing. We're looking at it more like, hey, this is like a platform marketing campaign. This isn't just for like credibility. This is like credibility, awareness, traffic, trust, leads, sales. Like there's so many other reasons to do this besides just like, oh, let me go get an article or whatever.
And he's speaking to the fact of people paying for marketing services. And if they want an article in whatever, on whatever platform, that they're going to have to pay for that as a service. And the whole premise of Guestio is a platform where people can ask to be on a show for X amount of dollars. Because let's face it, we've been around podcasting long enough to know a lot of guests just dropped a book or have a new training program or this or that they're promoting. And if any of your audience is converted as a podcast host, they're making money on it. So this is to level the playing field a little bit so everybody involved can make money, because despite what people believe, most podcasters do not make any money with their show. It's a labor of love. And a lot of sweat equity goes into it. And, to have a platform like this, I thought was pretty cool. Lynz, your thoughts?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think what strikes me about it is that if you have the audience, so the hard work, I think, is building the audience.
Most definitely.
For everybody, right? Everybody's trying that. That's the currency that we're all trying to trade in. And so if you have created an audience that does act upon your calls to action and engages with your content and does these things, then getting the guests to be a part of your income stream sounds like a pretty smart idea. If you don't have that, you don't have that. I think that's a lever that's only available for those that have amassed kind of a direct audience of any sort.
Right. And I think this next clip actually reinforces what we just talked about.
Yeah, so far it's been kind of a reprogramming in the pay-to-play strategy, because there's kind of this almost taboo attitude about it from a lot of people, where it's like, well, I would never pay for a guest, or, I would never pay to go on a show. And I'm just always curious as to why. It's not anybody's fault. It's not oh, they're just small-minded. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that's how the industry was portrayed for the last few years. Like I said, it's treated as a form of PR. The difference is, if you go get an article in NBC or Forbes or whatever, they're still going to make all their money this quarter. They're not dependent. They don't also have a 9 to 5 that they're working on the side, and then
it's kind of
podcast from 6
built already, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Advertising, and
the independent podcaster is not the same as having an article in Forbes, because the independent podcaster isn't going to make money no matter what. It's one thing if you're doing organic outreach, right? If you're here's 10 people I want on my show, let me go get them on my show. They shouldn't have to pay, because you're asking them to come on your show.
Yeah.
But if you have 40 requests every month to come on your show and you only have 4 spots available, why not charge those people to come on your show? Because the reason they're pitching you to come on their show, it's not just to add value to your audience, quote unquote. It's to make money. They have an offer. They have a coaching program. They have a book. They have a course. They have something that they want to sell to the audience. And yes, they're going to add value, or else you wouldn't bring them on the show. But ultimately, their goal is to capture audience and pour it into some sort of a marketing funnel that makes them money, which is totally fine. I'm all for it. Let's all go make some money together. But the issue that I had before was that nobody was willing to pay the podcaster.
It's been looked upon that podcasters are low-hanging fruit and easy to get on, because we're always looking for guests. And now that podcasting is, at the level it's at, and people are asking for fee appearances, it's kind of pushing back on that old school of thought. And it's interesting to see. And I can honestly attest that what he said about, if you have 40 people asking to be on your show a month and you only have 4 slots, why not charge, and see where that market value is for your audience, and letting these guests determine what that value is. I mean, what a brilliant way to play. And, you might be able to make a little money on the side.
Yeah. Well, I think the danger, the only dangerous part is that a lot of people think they have that problem before they do.
Most definitely.
And I've been one of those people. You know what I mean? I've been oh, I could make this, I could charge to do this show. And you're like, who? And so you really do have to build. You really have to build the demand first, and you have to front load. That's a lot of work, So
definitely. I mean, and it's interesting to see how the market values something. And I think that this is kind of a cool platform, because the host can go, no, I really don't want your money. I don't think you'll resonate well with my audience. So it's not a pay to play. It's, a pay to open that door to have a conversation, which I thought was fair. Number one. And number two, yes, if you have a very high demand show and people are knocking down doors to be a guest on your show, why not charge and weed out the weak? And he went on to say, once that guest pays, most likely they're going to be on time early. They're going to be more likely to promote that piece of content on their own social, because we've run into that too, where, the guest didn't even promote the episode that they were on. And, that's frustrating if you're trying to grow an audience. And, why wouldn't they use the assets that you provided them to promote the fact that they were on their show? They're promoting themselves. There's obviously some residual audience retention from that. However, he made some very valid points. So I encourage you to go back and listen to the entire episode. Number one. Number two, if you're looking at monetizing your podcast and charging guests to appear, check out Guestio. Maybe it's up your alley. Maybe you have a large enough audience to where it makes sense to you.
Yeah, I think that's it's certainly something to consider. And it, you know, it sounds to me also like might be worth checking out other episodes of this show. Like if she got this guest, I wonder what other guests she might be getting, you know?
And that's part of what intrigued me about this show. If she trains telemarketers, it's all about keeping that conversation going in a timely manner to get them to that ask quickly. So
it's a results. And so she has got to be living by results too, which means that I'm probably going to like what she's doing on some level.
Right. Not that I'm trying to, sell you a first aid kit over the phone, but when it comes to conversation, storytelling, commanding an audience, it all fits into podcasting.
It's the same thing, because whether you're just trying to keep people's attention or sell them something, the same rules apply.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So making conversations count was my pick for the week. We hope you check it out. Might be up your alley. And, I'm definitely going to turn my wife onto the veggies. She might dig that.
Yeah. No, I'm going to go check out Making Conversations Count. And this is another thing that's really important about this is that both these shows were submitted to us. And that means that we had no idea they existed before they were submitted to our show. And they were submitted through the feeddrops.com website. You can click a thing at the top that says submit your show. And we just wouldn't know about these shows if the creators hadn't gone and filled out that form. And so we really beg anybody who is making a podcast, who wants to be considered for this or who wants to be shared, fill out the form, tell us about your show, and let us try to share you.
And one thing on that, I'm the one that dumps the reports and gets rid of some junk because, it's a web form and some junk sneaks through from time to time. Some of it's quite comical. I need to start sharing it with you, Lynz.
Screenshots.
But we also ask you that you don't gamify it. I found a show and I liked the show for a future episode. And when I went back to click the link for that show, it was different. And it took me a second to realize they submitted multiple times.
Oh, funny.
So cool. Good on you. You caught my attention. But submit your show once. If you haven't heard back from us within, 4 weeks, give it another try or reach out to us. We're easy to get a hold of. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
DMs will definitely engage. Submit it. If you want to let us know, hey, we submitted, that's a good reminder. We're busy people. It never hurts to get reminded, but we'll definitely go and check out what you've brought. And we're going to get more submissions than we have time to do them. So we're going to end up doing, 50-something shows this year. And we've already gotten 30-something submissions, and so we're going to end up having more. And that's great. Please keep submitting and, be patient, and it'll be fun.
And that form's been up for 7 weeks now. And I just looked at submissions from week number 4 this week. So, we're dumping this report weekly, but it doesn't mean we're going to look at this last week's report because there's still some good shows that have been submitted.
Yeah. So. I still haven't checked some emails from 3 days ago. So it's the same kind of thing. So
for sure. Well, we thank you for listening to this episode of Feed Drops. We hope you enjoy it. If you want to hear any of these episodes in their entirety, they will be dropping in their entirety on our sister feed, Just the Drops, Wednesday, and then the second show Thursday. And or scroll down, hit the link, head over to the show. Please let them know you heard about their show on Feed Drops. That would mean the world to us. And again, if you're that social type, hit us up on social media.
Yeah. And then if you're very tired of trying to find all the different things in all the different places and you just want to see it in one place, that's where we have it all in Substack. So go check us out on Substack, and you can kind of see the video, the audio, all the different things. We're going to be adding sort of extra layers to that as well as we go along. So what we're saying is it's kind of a buffet situation. But if you want to go someplace and know that you're seeing the whole menu, the Substack is the way to go.
That it is. Until next week.